In this week's drive, we catch up as the champ tries next year's weapon. See a Formula One backroom boy recognised. Hustle a diesel in the desert. And take things easy in Detroit. All this and more in this week's Drive. We start this week with the magic word for motor racing engineers. Without a doubt, aerodynamics are, from a technical viewpoint, the most important factor for peak performance on the track. Slipping through the air and making it work for you is the key. In most Formula One teams, engineers spend about 3,600 hours or 150 days and nights a year testing and measuring in wind tunnels, keeping the air resistance of their cars to the absolute minimum.
Of course, the nose of a Formula One car is incredibly important for two reasons. The first is that it's the first part of the vehicle to be hit by the wind and air. The airflow around the whole vehicle needs to be defined here. You can see the air deflector shields at the side of the wing here. They ensure that the air is directed around the front wheel. Then there's another topic, downforce. That's what makes the wing on the front axle so important. It allows tuning the aerodynamic balance, which is what the driver feels once he's out on the track. The front and rear wings must be tuned appropriately.
The rule of thumb: the higher the angle of attack, the greater the downforce. High downforce allows the car to corner faster, but increased air resistance has to be avoided, as this will reduce the vehicle's top speed. The car's underbody exploits the airflow and creates the necessary vacuum, sucking the car onto the track and improving grip. A simple wooden plank must be attached to the cars to ensure a minimum ride height, to limit this level of grip and slow the cars a little. The exact level of downforce, that's the aerodynamic secret that each team's technicians are constantly seeking, microscopically adjusting the angle of front and rear wings to find a perfect balance. Too little downforce means hurtling straight off in corners. If the balance between the front and rear wings is not correct, the car breaks away and becomes uncontrollable.
I mean, people talk about wings and wings and wings, but you have the diffuser, you have the floor, the bodywork. The whole car as a concept aerodynamically has to be very sound, and very, very strong in terms of how the concept is done as a car. So it's like an aeroplane. You can have beautiful wings, but if the fuselage is a mess and has lumps all over it, then the plane will not be very nice. So you need to have it very nice overall.
An overall aerodynamics package, tuned right down to the tiniest detail, which means tiny nuances measured in millimeters. This also depends upon the interpretations and the subjective feelings of the drivers.
You notice it best if, on the same day, and preferably from one session to the next, you change something, then you get a direct comparison.
The subject of wind, or in other words aerodynamics, is also an important one for road traffic. Here too, reduced air resistance is desirable because it reduces fuel consumption.
There's an obvious trend to be seen here. Car manufacturers are striving to produce lighter cars, which then also need improved aerodynamics in order to reduce fuel consumption accordingly. Possibilities for this include modifying the underbody by applying panelling to parts that have so far always increased air resistance. This allows air currents to flow over them more favourably.
A passenger car, even with sports suspension, will begin to slide at about 1 G. Thanks to optimal aerodynamics in conjunction with the tyres, a Formula One car withstands 4 G of lateral force or even more when cornering. Just one of the reasons that aerodynamics will remain a magic word in motor racing into the future. The youngest world champion driver in Formula One history, Spaniard Fernando Alonso, celebrated his and the French Renault team's 2005 Constructors' title, along with managing director Flavio Briatore, teammate Giancarlo Fisichella, and Renault Group president Carlos Ghosn in Paris. After his victory in the last race of the season on October the 16th in Shanghai in China, Alonso won the World Drivers' Championship at the age of just 24. Alonso inherited his passion for racing from his father, who often accompanies him to the world circuits where he performs, and who taught him how to drive karts when Fernando was only 3 years old. In 2001, he started racing for the struggling Italian Formula One team Minardi, becoming the third youngest Formula One driver in the world. A year later, he was signed on as the test driver for Renault, and after just one season, the team promoted him to the top driver's role beside the experienced Italian Giancarlo Fisichella. He was asked if winning the title would change his attitude to racing.
Well, I think there are many things to do in your life, and probably in my career it's true that I achieved the maximum with 24, but as I said before, I'm an extremely competitive person, and every time I will be in the car, even in a test session, I will try to beat the others, and this is part of my life, and I will enjoy 2006 as like the first championship I race.
Fizzy was also looking forward.
We'll have new rules next year, and above all a new engine, which will go from 10 to 8 cylinders. And I would say I'm very optimistic. I've already seen the new car in the wind tunnel. It's beautiful, and it seems to give us excellent results. Same for the engine. I get along very well with the team. There's a great atmosphere. It's like a big family now, so we are all very optimistic.
Rory Byrne, the chief design engineer for the Ferrari Formula One team, was recently conferred with an honorary doctorate by his alma mater, the Witwatersrand University in Johannesburg in South Africa. Byrne graduated from Witwatersrand with a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemistry and Applied Mathematics in 1964. Despite not having any formal training in engineering, his career in motor racing took off when he designed and developed a Formula Ford chassis which finished second in the South African Championship race in 1972. He went on to greater heights when the newly arrived Michael Schumacher won the World Championship in a car that he designed. Since then, his magical touch has continued to produce victorious wheels for Formula One's Golden Boy, although this year Ferrari was defeated by Renault and McLaren. Rory is no doubt hard at work to correct that situation.
I feel really proud and very honoured to have this degree conferred on me this evening. For me, it's coming back to the university after over 40 years is such a pleasure.
He joined Ferrari 9 years ago.
So when I joined, there was absolutely no no design, or very little design, and no research capacity. So we had to build that up, as well as racing competitively in the '97 season. So that was extremely tough. I have to say it's not as tough now, but Formula One is like any professional sport. The competitors are extremely tough, and if you slack off just for one moment, you find that you fall behind. So it never gets any easier.
As fuel prices climb, many car experts have offered tips to help drivers maximize the fuel economy of their vehicles. Not surprisingly, most of them are common sense and easily overlooked. Here are a few ways that every vital drop of fuel can be put to best use, no matter what and where you drive. The first is to try and limit the use of the air conditioner wherever possible. It can use as much as 5% of the output of a car's engine. Prudent use of air conditioning and other high-energy accessories like heated seats will cut fuel use. Where it's fitted and where it's safe to do so, engage cruise control to help maintain a steady speed. Varying a vehicle's speed robs momentum and usually means more fuel is being burned. Avoid hard acceleration and last-minute hard braking. Rolling on and off the throttle gently will maintain momentum. If you're buying a new car, avoid the temptation to get more engine than you really need. Of course, keeping it well serviced and tuned is important. A clogged air filter can reduce fuel economy by as much as 10%. Checking tyres for correct inflation and trapped stones or sidewall damage should be a weekly chore. Tyres underinflated by just 2 psi can reduce fuel economy by as much as 1% because a soft tyre mushrooms where it touches the road. This generates heat, which shortens tyre life and affects steering, handling and brakes, as well as costing money at the petrol pump. Once the preserve of racing cars, on-board pressure monitoring systems are becoming increasingly common on ordinary road cars, but they don't replace that weekly inspection. Remove unnecessary extra weight. An extra 45 kilos in the boot can lower fuel economy by 1 to 2%. Remove empty cargo carriers, bike racks and ski racks. At highway speed, 50% of the engine's power is used to overcome drag. If you have to have a 5.7-litre V8 engine, try to buy a car with multi-displacement technology which shuts down one bank of cylinders when cruising. Of course, smaller, lighter, more efficient cars will always use less petrol than big, heavy barges. SUVs and four-wheel drives are also usually more thirsty than cars with the same size engine. They're built tougher and heavier, and their gearing, tyres and shape don't help their fuel economy either. Planning journeys to avoid rush hour avoids the engine idling for long periods. If a vehicle's engine warning light is on, it needs to be serviced. Faulty components such as an easily replaced oxygen sensor can reduce fuel economy by as much as 40%. Diesel engines are now found under some European bonnets. Massively powerful and surprisingly efficient, they are no longer noisy, smelly and smoky and can double the mileage of petrol-powered cars. But the easiest way to save fuel is to avoid making unnecessary journeys. This is what the world's best drivers on four wheels do during those long, dark Northern Hemisphere winter months. They head to Paris for the Race of Champions, a showdown featuring the cream of motorsports talent. Fittingly, Sébastien Loeb featured. His form in the World Rally Championship has been imperious this year. In his semi-final, Loeb faced, raced and beat his arch-rival, double former World Rally champion Marcus Gronholm. In the finals, his opponent was record-setting Danish Le Mans endurance racing specialist Tom Christensen, just hours after the Dane had secured the ROC Nations Cup for Team Scandinavia with Sweden's Mattias Ekström. Last year, Loeb lost out to Renault's new test driver Heikki Kovalainen. This year, Kovalainen and fellow Finn Marcus Gronholm were eliminated in the semi-finals by Christensen and Loeb. The first heat of the individual final was tight, very tight, Loeb taking it on a photo finish. New Ferrari Formula One recruit Felipe Massa, Daniel Sordo, NASCAR driver Jeff Gordon and former World Rally driver Colin McRae got as far as the quarterfinals before falling to Loeb, Kovalainen, Gronholm and Christensen. The French World Rally champion brought the 60,000-strong crowd to their feet, dominating Christensen in the title showdown. Multiple Le Mans winner Christensen crashed his Citroën into the barriers to the delight of the partisan crowd, handing Loeb victory in the best-of-three final. Created by Michel Mouton and Frederick Johnson in 1988, the Race of Champions is held in memory of Henri Toivonen, who died while leading the championship during the Corsica Rally in 1986. The Henri Toivonen Memorial Trophy is still awarded, going this year to Loeb. The Qatar Baja Rally was the final round of the International Cup for cross-country Baja events. Qatar's Nasser Salih Al Attiyah and French co-driver Alain Guillaume knew the importance of performing to the highest standards. They wanted to complete their final competitive Dakar Rally preparations in style. The all-conquering Al Attiyah was aiming to go unbeaten in 11 successive events in the Middle East since last October, including 9 rounds of the FIA Middle East Rally Championship and 2 successive Qatar Bajas. Their BMW X5 diesel held an early lead in the car class. Leading the chasing pack were Sergei Shemakov and Sergei Miskin of Russia. Their ZIL buggy, the only two-wheel drive car in the field, performed exceptionally well and fully deserved their eventual second position overall. Bad Bad news for Hari Jalala Al-Mari and Mohammed Al-Mari of Qatar. After being classified second after leg 2 on Friday, their Land Rover incurred 1 hour and 5 minutes of time penalties for missing a passage control and slipped to 4th place before the finish at the Qatar Motor and Motorcycle Federation headquarters in Doha. Spaniard Pau Soler, third in last year's event, began the final leg with a 20-minute advantage over fellow KTM rider Austrian Ewan Beert. Soler led the survivors into the desert, but Khaled Kamezozer was in a class of his own on the last stage on his Honda, the highest-placed Arab rider, finishing 6th. The UAE's Mohammed Al-Shamsi had been given the provisional lead in the quads on Friday evening, but when the results were recalculated, Khaled Al-Sayed was adjudged to be leading the category. The Qatari headed into the final stage with a 33-minute advantage over his rival, with Italy's Angelo Montico third and Qatar's Abdulrahman Al-Hajri in 4th. Soler won his maiden Baja title by 19 minutes and 22 seconds. There were triumphant scenes as Al-Attiyah neared the finishing line. He drove onto the winner's podium in Doha with a massive winning margin of 2 hours, 34 minutes and 37 seconds over Shimakov. Al-Attiyah would aim to wrap up a 12th success in the UAE the following weekend when he reverted to a Subaru Impreza for the Dubai International Rally.
Of course, I am very happy with what I have achieved, and it comes as a help in the International Rally Championship. This is our second successive win in this rally, and it will give us a big boost in our preparation for the Dakar Rally.
In the event, that rally would also see a dominant performance. The UAE's Sheikh Khalid Al-Qasimi and British co-driver Nicky Beach headed off the starting ramp first and swept the road. Nasser Al-Attiyah, now partnered by his regular co-driver Chris Patterson and back in his Subaru, were next on the road at the start. Jordan's Amjad Farah needed a solitary point to confirm outright 4th place in the title, but he was forced out with a broken engine. Al-Qasimi began the final day with a 6-minute 23-second lead over the nearest rival, Mikel Sali. He could lose 1 minute per stage and still win, but the regional champion was taking everything in his stride. Only 12 of the 28 starters finished the first day. 9 of those that failed were able to restart on Friday under new rules. One of those that didn't was Nasser Al-Attiyah, out with a blown engine at the end of the first stage. Lebanese Saleh began the day 37 seconds ahead of Jordanian Faris Bustami. The contest was short-lived. Saleh wrecked his rear suspension in the Massoud stage. Al-Qasimi only had 1 flat tyre and adjusted his suspension en route to victory. The struggle between Saleh and Bustami evaporated. Both drivers had planned a full attack over 2 loops of 3 gravel stages in the area around Hatta and Sayy Madam. But Saleh's suspension failure ended the duel for second place. UAE driver Yahya Al-Amri and British co-driver Craig Parry were 3rd overall. Kuwait's Mufid Mubarak was 4th, enough to claim 4th in the Drivers' Championship. Faris Bustami, the 4 times Jordanian national champion, eased his pace to finish 2nd, recording his best ever finish in the UAE. UAE's Sheikh Khalid Al-Qasimi and British co-driver Beach completed one of the most one-sided victories in the history of the Dubai International Rally when they drove their Subaru Impreza to a 14-minute 54-second win. Three days of tests for several MotoGP teams brought an end to all track action for 2005 ahead of the traditional winter testing ban, which runs until January the 20th. World champion Valentino Rossi was wearing his number 7 crash helmet, which was the one he wore to celebrate his 7th world title in Malaysia in September. Rossi was the fastest rider over the 3 days at Sepang as Yamaha rolled out their 2006 machine for the first time. The Italian clocked an unofficial best time some 0.3 of a second inside the lap record held by Honda's Nicky Hayden on the second day of the test, before a spell of morning rain prevented any hope of improvements on the final day. Testing is crucial for all the riders, despite the rigours of the season just ended.
Yes, it was a long year, and everyone are quite tired, but these tests are important because we need to try the new prototype of them, one for next year, and have not a big difference like last year, but have some small adjustment. So we need to understand if the bike is fast and if the first prototype is in the right way.
Temperatures were high, as was the humidity, but most of the riders didn't seem to mind. Repsol Honda's new signing Dani Pedrosa was one rider who was bothered by the excessive heat. He resumed his work on a unique version of the RC211V, which has a smaller tailpiece, differently mounted foot pegs and an isolated exhaust. The bike has been tailor-made for the tiny Spanish rider, but he was keen to share experiences with American teammate Nicky Hayden. 2006 will be the 20-year-old's first season in MotoGP after twice winning the 250cc class championship as well as the 125cc world crown.
We are trying to modify some things and get better position on the bike, and we will see if we can follow this line and try to get more confidence on the bike.
Another former 250cc world champion, Marco Melandri, set the early running before being outshone by Rossi. Melandri was joined at Sepang by his new teammate Tony Elias, who's also moved up from the 250s onto the four-stroke Honda. The annual Woodward Dream Cruise attracts more than 1.7 million car buffs and more than 40,000 muscle cars, street rods, custom, collector and special interest vehicles in the world's largest one-day celebration of car culture.
The Woodward Dream Cruise actually started 11 years ago as a fundraiser for a kids' athletic field, and it's grown in that amount of time into the largest one-day car show in the world. 40,000 or more people cruising in their classic vehicles up and down this 16-mile stretch of road. About 1.5 million to 2 million other people who don't own cars, classic cars, who are out here just to watch them and cheer them on.
Woodward Avenue.
The Dream Cruise celebrates the heydays of the 50s and 60s when Woodward Avenue was the heart and soul of cruising in Detroit, the city that put America on wheels. Combined with music and fashions of the era, the Dream Cruise celebrates the nostalgia of bygone days in the cars that made them so special. This year, the US Postal Service issued a range of postage stamps to commemorate the event.
Usually, the cancellation postmark is a round circle with just the date and the city in it. A pictorial cancellation, which is another word for the commemorative cancellation postmark, has the design and the date and the first day of issue located on it. That's the difference, and these are not generally available except for special events.
So, what special event did the Postal Service choose to issue this series of sporty car stamps, including one of the original Corvette? How about Detroit, and in particular the city's famous ode to vintage automobiles, the Woodward Dream Cruise? If you can't afford one of the classic cars, at least you can post them to your friends.
40,000 stamps are requested every year by different associations or individuals that want something on a stamp, and only 40 are chosen. So the odds of getting your stamp selected are very slim, so when they are, it becomes very collectible.
So, whether you're taking a dive in the finals, trying out a big new bike, or hopping over the hot desert sand, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.